Welcome to the This Week in Golf podcast. And today's shirt is, check it out. It's the universe on a record. It's like music makes the universe go round. I mean, what can I say? I got a golf music company. Come on. Anyways, this week's episode, PGA Tour versus the LIV Tour. I think this is the first weekend where there's been both events have played, and it was significant golf news across the board for both tours. And kind of what's happening, my overall look at the forest through the trees. So LIV had an event in Mexico, Mayakoba. Check out these payouts. Charles Howell III wins this thing for $4 million. Peter Yolin, I forget how they say his name. Second place is $2 million. Brandon Grace is third place. He gets 1.5. Brandon Grace won one of the tournaments for LIV last year, so he's making some cash. Paul Casey, Carlos Ortiz, we'll talk about him a little bit later. Cam Smith, Graham McDowell, and the list goes on and on. So that was their event. I did watch it a little. I tried to watch it on Friday. They're doing it through a network called the CW. So I went on to that because I have it on my television, but it's not available on Fridays. So it's only available through their mobile app. Didn't get it. And then on Saturdays and Sundays. So I watched some of Saturday's broadcast. A lot of music playing in the background. Like they literally play music on the course. So it's kind of weird during the broadcast. I don't really have a lot to say about the golf or the broadcast now because I didn't get to watch it closely. Of course, it made me wonder because the day, I can't remember if it was Sunday or Monday, but the PGA came out with an announcement during LIV of the changes the PGA Tour is now going to do. And so the PGA Tour essentially said they're going to have elevated events, the new elevated events, or maybe it's just whatever the old elevated events were, are only going to be 70 to 76 players total. No cut line. So all 76 players will play all weekend, 4 days. Same format. Everybody goes off the first tee or whatever. So no shotgun start like LIV. But, look at what the tour is basically doing to expand. You got the Korn Ferry Tour with 150 guys. You got the PGA Tour with 125. And now you have these elevated events. So you're on Korn Ferry, which is like the ultimate feeder league. And then maybe you qualify for the tour, but maybe you're ranked 90th. So you're not going to get into this elevated event unless you have 5 million social media followers and a really cool TikTok page and you can dance. Otherwise, you ain't getting in. So now there's this tiered system to get in. And it gets back to the podcast last week when I was talking about LIV and does LIV have a feeder league and how are they going to get any interest and competition in those feeder leagues to get it to that higher level? Or are you just going to have a bunch of people that want to play there for various reasons? Well, that's kind of what it started out as, LIV. A lot of people went over there for their various reasons. But, and speaking of which, I was watching Full Swing, the show on Netflix. And in one of the episodes, Mito Pereira, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right, Joaquin Neiman and Carlos Ortiz were all in this episode. Their wives are all there. They're cooking together. They're talking about how they're all from, I think they're from Chile. Well, at least Pereira is. He's from Chile. And so all the families are there. They travel together. They live together. They cook together. And they were even saying, this is like our little family. And here they are, trying to scrap away at the PGA Tour. And they all went over to LIV. Makes sense. They're probably living the high life, flying on a jet now, doing the same thing they were doing, just a little nicer. They get to be together, play less events, be with the kids. So look, everybody's got their reason for going there. Poulter, I talked about that last time, kind of on the twilight of his career, wants to be more with his family. Why not take the money, right? So, everybody's got their reasons, and you just see it though, like this week, the PGA has the Honda Classic. Last week, excuse me. And the winner was Chris Kirk. And I don't have a lot of coverage on it. I was traveling in Palm Springs playing golf. Sorry. Not sorry. Chris Kirk won that event, 1.5 million. So look, that's, if you get third place on LIV, you get 1.5 million, right? Chris Kirk, Eric Cole, they did go into a playoff and Kirk won. And then kind of a bunch of guys you're probably not too familiar with unless you're a hardcore golfer. So here's kind of that event. It's kind of a feeder event, right? So it's not an elevated event, but there's a lot of guys out there that like, look, if they can win this event, they can get invited to an elevated event. They can get invited to the Masters. They get to play in the Tour Championship, in the PGA, right? So it's pretty cool the way they're doing this. And we'll see what's happening. But that's the bigger picture. It's like, you know, the PGA Tour, of all the changes they're making, they look like they're in reaction to LIV, and in a sense they kind of are. But at the same time, they're creating this whole tiered system that's going to make the top guys even more. And I mean, like, for instance, today is Thursday, right? I had to, sorry, I was a day late on this, but look, the leaderboard right now, let me just look this thing up. Arnold Palmer Invitational leaderboard. Okay. So today's Thursday. Usually I do the show on Wednesday, but I was traveling, so I had to do it today on Thursday, and I might change it because this allows me to get coverage of the Thursday PGA Tour event. But what's cool about this leaderboard is, I mean, look at this thing. John Rahm, Chris Kirk, the guy who won last year, Cam Young, one of the young guys, great young player, Scheffler, Spieth, Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, Ricky Fowler's making a comeback. Keegan Bradley's been playing good all year. I mean, these are big names at the top of this board. That's the top 10 right now. So these PGA Tour events, man, they are, and Homa's in there too. And Homa's going to be a star. Homa's already a star, right? So like all these names are in there. And I really like what the tour is doing, just to get more eyes on it, more events. I think they've you know, had a fire lit under them by LIV, and you know, they're doing something about it. My final thoughts on the whole big picture is just this little interesting tidbit of a story I saw that Sports Illustrated is coming out with their own ranking service. So they'll be ranking golfers now. They're gonna, you know, it's like, what's the one? There was a stat in football. It's the total QBR, total quarterback rating, right? Like, this is a new stat they created 2 years ago. Now it's like the main stat. So, you know, I think for this SI World Golf Ranking, what they're doing is they're trying to include LIV players and say, hey, these guys are the best, or they're not the best, or who is the best. So whoever's, there's a current world ranking system of golf. I would expect some changes are coming down the pike in that. Rahm's been pretty critical of them as far as, you know, he plays in an event with only 30 people, and he doesn't get as many points as somebody that played in the Honda Classic. So he's talking about strength of the field versus size of the field, right? And in the current system, the bigger the size of the field, the more points you get. So, you know, there's some of these players are complaining about that. So start looking for some changes within that, because they're going to see this pressure from this World Golf League to be like, hey, look, they're ranking all these guys. And now maybe not next year, maybe the year after, the Masters says, you know, your list isn't inclusive. This guy's over on LIV. He's won 4 events. He should qualify for the Masters. So, as we always say, people try to hold on to what they have, and the ranking system currently probably needs some adjustments and changes. Okay, so I think that's about it for the week in golf. Looking forward to a great tournament this weekend at the Arnold Palmer Classic. Just a personal note, I was just in Palm Springs with 2 of my buddies. We went on a golf trip, and I didn't allow. My buddy Brody planned the whole darn thing, and he's like, we got an Airbnb and we're playing golf at these courses. I didn't even know where we were playing, okay? And we went, and it was awesome. And he had a hookup, knows a guy who knows a guy, and we got to play at Tradition in La Quinta. La Quinta, everybody says Palm Springs, but it's La Quinta in Indian Wells, where most of the golf courses are. We got to play Tradition, which is an Arnold Palmer golf course designed I think around in the 90s. You go out there, it's obviously in the desert, it's against the mountain, so it looks a little bit like desert golf. But the way the course was made, so green, all big, huge white bunkers, the same sand they use at Augusta, probably either the first or second best course I've ever played in my life as far as like maintenance, look, beauty. It was challenging as well. It had all that. It had the postcard shot from the top of the mountain down to the fairway. It had everything. The greens were immaculate. The best greens I've ever played on as far as condition, and they rolled really well as well. They were nice, they were firm, and there weren't any ball marks on them, which, like, we played PGA West, it was covered in ball marks. It's kind of ridiculous, actually. So I'll leave you with one final thought. When you hit it on the green, fix your ball mark plus one others, yours and another, please. Hey, it's Jeremy Callahan, and thanks for listening to This Week in Golf. Make sure and hit subscribe so you can get all the latest news and analysis from Golf BPM.